to Everything Mental Health with your hosts, Chris Weeks and Maureen Edwards.
So, Chris, we were going to talk about the next part of the addiction cycle, which is cravings. So, the person has had this emotional or mental trigger, and they are seeking to cope with it. And then, because they have developed this addiction, they get it's usually a combination of a physical and a mental craving, where this idea pops into their head. Wouldn't it be a good idea to get some blank? Alcohol, drugs, doing a certain behavior that they might be addicted to. And this craving or this idea can really be fast, especially as the addiction gets well developed. In the beginning, you might have a little bit more time. That's why when we're looking on helping people combat the addiction, this is where the intervention has to be, right at the precipice of the emotional trigger and the craving.
Right.
Because once that craving comes in and then they start to act upon it, usually there's not much you can do. It goes so fast that the cycle just completes itself.
Right. And it's at that point one can interrupt the next stage, as you're saying then. As far as the craving.
Usually at the beginnings of the craving.
Right.
So it's learning also what are a person's cravings. Everybody might be different. So, for example, what are signs of what are cravings?
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to say something about that?
Well, I would imagine that a craving is where there's the desire for the use of the substance, a strong desire for the use of the substance in some fashion, where it's almost like a compulsion. I want to do this thing. I have to do this thing, and I imagine also that it part of that is the body reacting to the lack of the substance in its system as well.
Exactly.
So psychologically, it translates into this: I need to get this thing now.
I think that's a really important point, as many times in addiction, there's a physiological response driving the mental part of that which thinks up the idea to use.
Yes.
Right? There's a blood drop in alcohol. There's a blood drop in opiates or cocaine or whatever the substance was.
Yeah.
And that causes this physiological, something's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Ding, I got this idea. This is a great idea. And then once that idea comes in and the person starts thinking about it, they literally they can go through step by step of how they're going to fulfill this craving.
Yes.
Right?
And what can kick in at that point also is the almost like a dopamine urge to now follow through with the next stage. We're sort of getting to that point where this feels, ironically, this feels good.
Yes.
And so getting getting excited about now procuring the substance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what you're saying about it's an excitement, and once that craving, once you start to talk to yourself about the craving
Right.
and all the ways that, maybe it's like, oh, well, look at that, my spouse is going to be leaving for 2 hours this afternoon. That's interesting. And I'll just take a trip to the supermarket, but on the way I'll stop by somebody's house, or I'll go to a liquor store. Like, there can be all of these little ideas associated with the cravings that start that idea into motion.
Yeah. And then from there, it's almost an automatic process without any kind of cognitive interruption. There is just this kind of automatic process that takes place where the next stage of the cycle ensues.
Exactly.
Yeah.